The thing that scares me, my man, more than anything else is that, and I don't mean to sound conceited or bigger headed than I need to be, and that is that it freaks me out that I've been right about all this stuff and the speed at which it's accelerating. If this doesn't wake people up, and the problem is we don't have millions of people listening to us here on this channel like they do on the Sunday evening news or 60 Minutes or whatever, where they should really tell the world exactly what's happening. And we are being challenged in every way for supremacy, and it's being done in a methodical fashion. Instead of doing it, we got to do it now, got to do it. No, 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 no. This has been 17 years in the works.
All right, folks, I recently had a brilliant idea that I'm extremely excited to do. It's a little project, and I think it will help you all. I've been doing this podcast with Andy Scheckman for over 2 years now. We've posted 31 episodes so far, and each are over an hour long. There's been so many good conversations and so much information Andy's brought up, which you've most likely missed unless you religiously watch every single episode from start to finish. So I'm right now combing through hours upon hours of footage from these shows and highlighting important clips and information that Andy's mentioned, and I'm going to compile them together in a single video. Now, I'll have to post multiple of these compilation videos because there's just so much footage out there. I'm sure a lot of these clips you've never seen before, even if you do occasionally or frequently watch the podcast, and that's because I'm literally combing through 31 different episodes we've done over the years. If you like these compilation videos, let me know and I'll continue to post more. I'd hate for so much valuable information just go to waste, left into the dark, barren wasteland of my channel. So without further ado, let's jump into these conversations, and I hope you enjoy.
There's roughly 40 some million ounces on COMEX that are for sale, backing the contracts that are rehypothecated by a factor of 15, 16, 1700%. And yet India has bought, and now with this, almost 20 times that amount. So this is a country that understands what is happening. They understand that the West is using the leverage of the COMEX and the LBMA to control prices, and they're using it against us. When the COMEX was designed all these years ago, in 74, right after the day after President Ford allowed gold to be made legal again, they needed to control the price. So they came up with the system. And the system was, we'll create fake gold and fake money to buy it. What I mean by that is that they rehypothecate. As I mentioned, right now, silver is rehypothecated like 1,700%, and gold's a little bit less than that. But the point of it is that what they do is, back then especially, you first have to understand that no one really ever stood for delivery. 1% of the contracts issued would stand for delivery. It was used to hedge exposure for producers and farmers and all sorts of things, where you would, hedge wheat when you plant a field in April and hedge its production into September when it's harvested. When the farmer or the baker can buy the contract in September with a guaranteed price, and the farmer can sell a contract in April for delivery in September for a guaranteed price, and everyone wins. And anyways, but in terms of gold and silver, it was, they didn't want to let it get out of control. It was after the London gold pool, so they didn't want to let it get out of control because it signals the weakness in the system. So the system that they would create would be like this. When I say fake gold and fake money, like if I have $100,000 in my margin account right now, it costs about $8,000 in my margin account in order to buy a 100-ounce gold contract. Now, I don't have to spend that $8,000. It just has to sit in that margin account. And if the price doesn't go against me, I never pay for it. The trade itself, or unless I take delivery, the trade itself is, a few bucks, just like any trade. But the margin account is what allows me to control the silver and the gold. So gold in this case. So if the COMEX says, look, we can sell that one contract 100 times to 100 different people, no one ever takes possession of it anyway. They'll pay us for it. We'll say, okay, you own it. They're never going to take possession of it. And all you got to do to pay for it is have money in your margin account. So they don't even have to pay for it. It will create all of this volume in contracts that allows us to control the price. No one ever stood for delivery, but that's changing now, you see, and the suppression through rehypothecation or manipulation of the contracts is ending because you're having all of the countries say thank you. I appreciate that. See, because now India and China are not third world. They're industrialized, rich, and savvy. And they're saying, wonderful, thank you so much. I'll stand for delivery. And the LBMA has about the lowest amount of silver they've ever had, ever on hand. The COMEX is watching 400 million plus ounces be bled out over the last 2 years. And the whole system is being bled dry using the suppression of the West. I want to read to you something to prove that they understand this. This is something that I've said on your show a gazillion times over the last year plus about how that they're going to issue a BRICS common currency at some point, and that it will be pegged to a basket of currencies and a basket of commodities. We've said that. Sergei Glaziev has told us that for 3 years. I've said it on 1,000+ podcasts, and it will happen. Didn't happen in August, might not happen in October. Maybe it will, the October meeting in Russia, but it will happen eventually. Until then, what they've been doing, by the way, just to digress for a moment, they trade with their local currencies instead of using dollar to settle. China just canceled huge amount of thousands of tons of wheat from Australia and the United States. They're now buying it from Russia and Brazil, and they're doing that in a way whereby they are paying for it. These countries for the wheat, they'll accept yuan for it. And then instead of holding that yuan, normally it would have been dollars, which creates demand for the dollars. But instead, they'll use the digital yuan, and then they'll take that yuan and send it back to the Shanghai Gold Exchange, where they can immediately convert that yuan into gold, which is what? The only other tier one reserve asset. And so, then instead of what they would have normally done is settle in dollars and then take the proceeds and buy treasuries. Instead of doing that, they're buying gold and they're selling treasuries. So they're replacing treasuries, which can be sanctioned and confiscated. The idiot, brain dead Treasury Secretary Yellen in Brazil, of all places, a charter member of BRICS, publicly says we need to confiscate Russian assets, not just seize them, but confiscate them to fund the Ukrainian war. What an idiot. Complete and total stupidity. So who the hell would want to buy our treasury bonds that have inflation risk, have been very volatile? In fact, more volatile last year than gold for the first time in 45 years. And as proven, if you don't align with them, they'll take it from you and they'll confiscate it if we don't align ideologically. So much so that they've just developed the BRICS grain exchange, where, before I finish on what I was going to say, the one thing they say about the BRICS grain exchange is that global prices are determined by the Chicago Commodity Exchange. Moscow and China seek to move away from trading grain for US dollars in favor of the national currencies of BRICS member states. Well, China just canceled these massive contracts last week with Australia and the U.S. farmers buying it from Russia, buying it from corn and soybeans from Brazil instead of the U.S., paying in yuan instead of U.S. dollars. And then those countries, instead of stockpiling those currencies, which would have been dollars, they switch it into gold on the Shanghai Exchange, take possession instead of buying treasuries. This is happening right out from underneath us. But to prove they know what's going on, I'm going to read to you something. So there was an article that came out. Another finance minister, a Kremlin aide named Yuri Ushakov, came out and he said, look, we are indeed developing a currency. And the idea of the currency is that there will be two baskets. One basket of national currencies of the countries involved, one basket of commodities. And of course, they mentioned that it will be digital, in the digital form, which means it can be used without the banking system, just like the Project M Bridge that they developed, which we just saw the first ever cross-border payment for gold using the digital yuan. It sidesteps the SWIFT. They can go and not be, have to go through the intermediary banks of the West. They can go right on Project M Bridge, trade their digital currencies with another currency to buy the commodity and accept digital yuan. So in any case, or any of these digital currencies. So in any case, here's what he says. So we know, we've talked about a basket of currencies and a basket of commodities. That's nothing new. But how about this? And I've been saying this for 3 years, and it's coming, and you can see they know it. Second part is price. For the moment, price is determined by Western speculation. For the moment, price is determined by Western speculation. We produce all of these commodities and we consume them. I mean, China produces more gold than anyone in the world, and they're the largest accumulators of it, right next to India. And so, we produce, we consume, yet we do not have the ability to. But we do not have our own price mechanism, which will balance supply and demand. Now, let me stop there for a minute. What did I tell you about the way the COMEX was designed? If it were done one-to-one, supply demand would be balanced. But instead of doing it one-to-one, they rehypothecate the shit out of it, over leverage it, create more and more and more and more contracts to control and suppress the price, right? It's
Right.
not one to one. The
Right.
rehypothecation right now in silver is like 1700%, not one to one. So we produce, we consume, but we do not have our own price mechanism, which will balance supply and demand. During the COVID panic, the price of oil fell to nearly zero. Now, as I've said on 12 podcasts this week, we know that's wrong. It went to negative $40 a barrel because all the tankers were loaded with oil during COVID. They couldn't get into the ports, so no one wanted it. How about we'll pay you 40 bucks a barrel? This is what happens when the futures control the price. The speculators, the gamblers, they create distortions. So he says it fell to nearly zero. He's wrong there. It was negative 40. But he goes on to say it's impossible to make any strategic planning for economic development if you do not control prices of basic commodities. Here's where it gets good. Price formation with this new currency should get rid of Western exchanges of commodities. Read that one more time. Price formation with this new currency should get rid of Western exchanges of commodities. So they understand what we're doing. They understand that we are suppressing the price of gold and silver, but they're using it against us. And I've been saying that forever. Like jujitsu, you use your opponent's leverage against them. They are using the suppression of the Western paper market to drain the COMEX, to drain the LBMA, to drain everything. And now, after they've been very effective at that, now they're doing arbitrage where they're turning up the heat, where the price of gold and silver are priced much higher in Shanghai, $3 higher on silver, and it opened up 7% limit up on Monday. Didn't do that here. So they're pricing it higher there to attract the traders who have access to all three platforms, Shanghai, LBMA, and COMEX, and to buy on the West and deliver to the East for a premium. That shit ain't ever coming back. Never. And they are slowly, methodically doing it the right way. And I always say logarithmic decay. That's going to be the next tattoo, little by little, then all at once. Well, that's what they're doing, little by little, by little, by little, then boom, all at once. So when we talk about India importing all of this silver using the suppression of the brain dead West, they know it. And they know that at some point, no one will be stupid enough to trust the Western price and deliver at those stupid prices. And that's when, boom, the COMEX and the LBMA bust. And that's when the new price is set on a cash and carry basis in Moscow, in Dubai, and in Shanghai, and other parts of the world that accumulate and produce and respect these commodities for what they should be. And it won't just be precious metals. It'll be commodities or soft commodities like corn, like wheat, like the new BRICS grain exchange. But how about the fact that they own the LME, the London Metals Exchange, which isn't precious metals, it's base metals, steel, copper, aluminum, zinc, nickel, all that stuff, right? So they own it. They own it. And now they want to start putting the warehousing of all of these metals traded in London on the LME in China. Do you see a problem here? Do you see what they're doing? They're going to buy up all the grain and all the wheat and all the corn and the soybeans. They're buying all the base metals, the copper, the aluminum, the steel, the zinc. They're buying all the precious metals. They're going into Africa. They're going into South America through the Belt Road Initiative, and they're striking deals. And those deals are mutually cooperative. We will come into your country, which is unindustrialized and third world, and we will help you pull your natural resources out of the ground. We will build railways and roads and maritime channels to help you deliver it. We will industrialize your country. We will enrich it, your country, and we want to cut. That's how business is done, mutually respectful, mutually beneficial. We go in with a gun to someone's head and coercion and make them do things that they don't want to do, when China and this new growing union of countries is doing it a different way. They are doing it in a mutually cooperative way. And I mentioned to you that we saw that first in 2023, late 2023, like in November, December, the first ever cross-border settlement for gold using the digital yuan. And remember, we've talked about the Belt Road Initiative for a very long time, right? What is it? It's 150 plus countries right now 75% of human population, 50+% of global GDP and growing. And a lot of these countries are unindustrialized. So check this out. Chinese government just launched a new public blockchain infrastructure platform led by the Conflux Network. The new platform, dubbed Ultra Large Scale Blockchain Infrastructure Platform for the Belt Road Initiative, aims to create a public blockchain infrastructure platform. This platform will be able to support the implementation of cross-border cooperation projects along the Belt Road Initiative. So you have 75% of human population right there. And all of the deals I have mentioned for years are being settled on the digital yuan, most of them, the contracts that are building out this infrastructure. Now they have the ability, once they've industrialized and pulled all the shit out of the ground and built the roads and the bridges and the railroads and the maritime channels, to pay for it all, going back and forth, sidestepping the SWIFT on a digital system like Project M Bridge, which cuts the West out completely and totally. And all of the pathways are connecting to the BRICS pathways, like the North-South corridor that goes from like Iran to Russia or to India, past Russia, and out, instead of going through, the Indian Ocean where you got the U.S. Navy. All of these things are being done, isolating the West. And if you see the little by little, the chessboard, little by little by little by little, look at all the pieces, infrastructure. Look at the 10 countries that have already signed on to BRICS. And one of the countries that has formally applied, I believe, is Sudan. And if you look at next to Egypt and Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates and Iran, they have the entire Red Sea and Straits of Hormuz now covered, the entire thing. They have shipping lanes. They have relationships done mutually beneficially all over the world with the majority of human population. You have the president of Belarus calling for a summit to join the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. See that word cooperation? And the Eurasian Economic Union into the BRICS. I've been saying that for 3 years. The SCO, which both Iran and Saudi Arabia have applied to. Iran is a full member. Saudi Arabia will be this year. They are a observant member last year, is the largest regional military and financial organization in the world. You put all these groups together with the Belt Road, you're talking the majority of human population, the majority of all the rare earth metals, the majority of all of the soft and hard commodities, and the majority of all the precious metals, not to mention oil and natural gas. It's a situation that is growing rapidly. And the fact that our media doesn't just do a horseshit job of it, they do no job of telling any of us what's happening. And this infrastructure is becoming very impressive. And everyone says, the naysayers, very smart people, will say, well, the bond market, this and the bond, they don't have a bond market. Who's going to trust them? Who trusts us anymore? And our bonds, which have been horrible, no one wants anymore. So instead, they sell bonds and they buy gold, which has no counterparty liability, which has outperformed the bond market, which has a 5,000-year history of being wealth. And the debt of a country in the form of a bond has about that big of a historical precedent of being money or wealth. So this is all happening right out from underneath us. And the thing that scares me, my man, more than anything else is that, and I don't mean to sound conceited or bigger headed than I need to be, and that is that it freaks me out that I've been right about all this stuff and the speed at which it's accelerating. If this doesn't wake people up, and the problem is we don't have millions of people listening to us here on this channel like they do on the Sunday evening news or 60 Minutes or whatever, where they should really tell the world exactly what's happening. And we are being challenged in every way for supremacy, and it's being done in a methodical fashion. Instead of doing it, we got to do it now, got to do it. No. This has been 17 years in the works. When you take the average daily volume of the Shanghai Metals Exchange and the Shanghai Gold Exchange, which has increased 200% in the last 60 days, it has overtaken the COMEX to number 2 in the world in volume behind the LBMA. This is not a little pissant place. This is a very substantial market. When you talk about how much metal is flowing in and out of here, you just had a report by the Financial Times saying that especially what is being accumulated by Russia and China is massively underreported. You had analysts from the Bank of Montreal just say the exact same thing, that the numbers are vastly underreported. But let's talk about something for a moment. First of all, let's talk about the LBMA. They publish monthly reporting, trading volume. And as I mentioned, 800 million ounces of silver, 500 million belong to the ETFs, 300 million ounces left over. Yet they trade roughly 292 million ounces of silver per day. This is just the LBMA. 292 million ounces per day. These spot contracts, as they're called, which are basically promises by the bullion banks, represent 90% of all the trading there. So yeah, I'm Standard Chartered Bank or I'm HSBC. Sure, I'll sell you whatever you want, but I don't have it, and you don't have to pay for it. We're going to pretend, right? I'm going to pretend that you own it, and you're going to pretend to pay for it by maintaining a margin account. Well, if you want delivery, I'll give it to you, but let's just hope everyone doesn't want delivery. Ask Bernie Madoff how that worked out when everyone wanted delivery or everyone wanted to receive it. The Ponzi works great in a fractionalized system when not everyone wants to take it. Now, they also trade 20 million ounces of gold a day. Well, let's put that in comparison just to give you a perspective. Remember, I said you have to deposit a bar in Shanghai gold in order to pull a bar out. So their average volume is 300,000 ounces because it's real and you take possession of the stuff, right? Whereas now, if you're in China or you're part of the team, you can probably take it and go do whatever you want with it. But to export it, buy it and export it like they do off of COMEX, no, you got to deposit a bar first. So they're doing 300,000 ounces in real stuff. And let's not forget that when you take the average daily volume of the Shanghai Metals Exchange and the Shanghai Gold Exchange, which has increased 200% in the last 60 days, it has overtaken the COMEX to number 2 in the world in volume behind the LBMA. This is not a little pissant place. This is a very substantial market. And there was a survey done in 2011 with the bullion banks where they said, well, the numbers are actually 10 times what they're saying. Because if I am a bullion bank and I sell you 20 contracts and buy 5, the net result is 15. Excuse me, let's do it this way. If I sell you 20 and I buy 10, the net result is 10. And so they don't count that as 30 contracts. They take it as only 10. So all of these trades, they're not reporting that are being settled. And so they estimate that it's at least 10 times the trading volume on the LBMA than what they report, which would mean they're trading roughly 292 million ounces of gold a day. And excuse me, I take that back. That would mean, let's back this up. In terms of gold, they would be trading 200 million ounces of gold per day. Sorry, 200 million ounces of gold per day. And in silver, 2.92 billion ounces of silver per day on the London Metals Exchange. And in essence, they've admitted this. The LBMA has admitted this. And so when you talk about trading 2.9 billion ounces of silver per day on the LBMA, that's 3.5 times yearly production in one day. This jig is coming to an end, and I think these countries realize this is how we beat them. We beat them by taking physical possession. Now, let's talk about silver for one moment. I believe that these banks came there to beg them for help. And if you look at the export numbers in silver since the second week in March, they've fallen straight down. I believe there's a quid pro quo going on. We don't know what agreement they agreed to. It's not being done out of benevolence. Can assure you that. But they're doing something to get silver so they don't default, if I had to guess. This is the gist of David Jensen's interview, which I found to be fascinating. And, look, the act of permitting all of these paper claims on the market creates an environment where the ability to manage gold and silver's price rise is accentuated through the creation of all of these artificial contracts. And in a period of time, remember I was saying you can push it in the direction it's going. Back when no one wanted to challenge the dollar, no one wanted to accumulate commodities, no one was looking at the world the way they are now, it was easy to do it. Now they're in large part being called under the carpet, to your point. All of that gold being delivered off of the exchange, all of the gold being delivered to the exchange off of COMEX, all of the silver being drained by all of the exchanges. Slowly and methodically, they are using the Western suppression against them. They are not doing it in a haphazard way. They are not doing it in a shotgun style to cut off their nose to spite their face. They're methodical, they're regimented, they are slowly draining the exchanges. And when you see all of this activity being done over the Memorial Day weekend when the American public doesn't have access to the market, why, it only makes it a little bit more compelling as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, dude, I don't look, I just think the bottom line is simply this. Knowing that you can't really export gold out of China without first putting your own bar in there ain't going to work, but you can export silver. And all of a sudden, big bullion banks start showing up, the ones that are naked shorting the market. And you can see in the inventory numbers that which are dropping in both gold and silver, but silver mostly since March, that this is real. And there's going to become a moment where these banks start eating one another, where it's every man for himself. Um, and I guess this is just the beginning, if I had to guess. But I'll let you comment, and then I'll tell you what Jeffrey Curry had to say about all of this to kind of support and back things up.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, some of the most popular comments or questions, I guess, that were pushed towards you are about this same exact topic. I try to let people understand that this is real. There is not an equal 1-to-1 ratio. Like, if you can't hold it, you don't own it. And I've always stuck with that motto. Like, if you can't hold it, you don't own it. And that ounce that you are holding, someone else thinks they own it too, but they don't. I feel like people don't understand that facade or how dramatic it really is. So what were you mentioning?
Well, I was going to mention Jeffrey Curry, but I can take some questions and we can come back to Jeffrey Curry. That's fine.
Oh yeah, because since we're still on the topic, this person says at the current rate of silver moving off the COMEX, how long until available for delivery is depleted?
I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
Those are impossible to answer questions. So
yeah,
what if questions are impossible to answer?
yeah.
But the fact that we're seeing drawdowns in the COMEX, in the ETFs, in the LBMA, now the Shanghai Exchange tells you that, little by little by little, and then that all at once moment, well, it's coming. The inevitability of it is. And that's what I think is the important thing to think about is that who cares? I mean, and I don't mean to dismiss the question. Everyone would like to know, but who cares when you know it's
Yeah.
inevitable?
Yeah.
Um, and I think the inevitability of things it necessitates the preparation. And if we knew when, if we all knew when we were going to die, well, it would make buying life insurance a lot easier and getting our affairs in order earlier. But the inevitability of it necessitates as we get older to start preparing. Well, I would say we're getting older as it relates to this market and the ability of the West to continue to suppress things. And I really do believe that more than anything at all, that the Western system is of price setting is coming to an end. And
Mm,
I think the trend of metals being determined by the Western institutional investors is breaking down. And this flow from west to east, it's real. So know that, what starts out slowly and methodically is already increasing. Look at the price of the difference in the arbitrage. Like it was $2 when it started. Silver was $2 higher than in Shanghai than in the West, and then three, then four. Now we're at about $4.30. Does it keep going higher? Does it go to 5, 10? They're not making it easy on the West. That's for sure. If they are coming asking for silver, they're going to pay a hell of a premium. But I do think that this is something that will just continue to evolve, and the when is impossible to ascertain. But the it happening, that's not. I think you can see it is
yeah.
happening right here in front of us.
Yeah, that's the important part. And like Ted Butler always mentions as well. It's like this will happen. It cannot go on forever. So this person says, Andy, is the reporting that silver purchased in China at the higher price range can only be redeemed in China? And how big of a factor is the west to east arbitrage scenario?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the price they're willing to pay for it for now. You would not want to, buy it at that price in China and redeem it anywhere else, and vice versa. If you had your druthers, you would buy it here and redeem it there. That's being
Yeah.
done by design. That's how they do arbitrage it. They say that the price, and I could think, quite frankly, if you ask them what the real price is, they would say it's way higher. But, fugazi is what they would say if they spoke Italian, but
Hmm.
Italian slang. But I think that this is how you steal basically the metal from the West, not steal, but pry away, because they're paying a hell of a premium, and the traders who can access both markets are doing just that, to arbitrage. And but how real is it? It's very real and it's very serious. The United Kingdom published a report, the government did a year ago or so or less, that said we're really in a bad place in Great Britain because we're so reliant on all these other countries for so many critical things that we need, rare earths and precious metals and certain commodities, and you don't want to be in that position. Well, the Chinese are winning this mineral war. They are. And they are going around the world, not only accumulating everything they can off of the major exchanges, but through the Belt Road, all of the countries that are on the Belt Road and part of the BRICS are massively resource rich. So they come in and they industrialize them. And all the naysayers in the world can say what they want. They are doing things in a cooperative manner. They're not holding a gun to anyone's head. They're giving them the opportunity. Now, if they mismanage the loans that they are making or getting made to them, or doing things that some people say is not making the Belt Road as glamorous as some would say, I disagree completely. They are uniting what is right now almost 80% of human population in a growing coalition. And you put it together with the BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union, you're talking the majority of human population, three of the four largest nuclear arsenals, the majority of global GDP, the majority of the world's shipping lanes, the majority of all the world's commodities, all of them, from food to rare earths to, and then they go out and the Chinese buy the LME, the London Metals Exchange, which trades all the base metals. I mean, you can see it's happening. If you don't, you're going to really wake up a victim. And I think trying to time this is about as foolish as it gets. It's like trying to catch a bullet with your bare hand. You have to ask yourself, of all of the commodities traded on the COMEX, why is there the largest concentrated short position, meaning by a handful of players, commercial banks, in silver, more than any other commodity on the exchange? Why?
Right.
And that's a question. Then you work backwards from there. And so I think it's easy to come up with these statements when you look at the reality, but people don't ever look at that reality and just ask that question. Why is the Silver Institute omitting these things? And why is there the largest concentrated short position of any commodity traded in the whole futures exchange in lowly old silver, if it's not that important? And these are questions that allow your mind to expand and then try and seek the truth in a way that is not conspiratorial. There's a very fine line between conspiracy and reality. And I've learned that in this industry. And I was the guy up on stage at the Agora conference screaming that the markets are being manipulated by J.P. Morgan. And Doug Casey said, no, that's impossible. Right after me, that's impossible. He got up and said, J.P. Morgan traders can't keep their mouth shut long enough. Oh, lo and behold, J.P. Morgan has 3 traders in prison and paid a $920 million fine, the largest ever that the Justice Department passed out at that point. So the point is that, is it conspiracy? Is it reality? Where is it? You know, I mean, where's the tinfoil hat? And I think that's one of the things that has enabled people to look past this because it's just conspiracy, it's bullshit. But it's not. And these are the things that why there'll be very little advanced warning to everyone out there. We've been screaming this forever, but the people on the street who've never listened, they won't notice it until it's blown off. And I think that's coming. That's in the cards.
Yeah. And that's actually that's a perfect segue into this article. This is some good stuff. I made a video about this yesterday, but I want to share this last section. Silver, the investment of the decade. As we navigate this juncture in the precious metals market, it's evident that silver holds the potential to be one of the most profitable investments of this decade. The historical echoes of the gold to silver ratio and the current anomaly in silver's lag suggest that a resolution is near. Investors, prepare yourselves for a silver resurgence, a journey that may be tumultuous but promises rewards for those who ride the waves wisely.
Right on. I agree. And that's that volatility.
Yep.
And typically you see greater volatility before a blow off in any market in either direction. And, you know, I mean, take a look at the far bottom left there. You know, before you took off, great volatility, up, down, down hard, and then way up. And then, I mean, that's what you see. You see much greater volatility before a market really takes off. That's typical.
Yeah. A lot of, what is this saying? Like 90% of the movement happens the last
10%.
Last 10%. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. And that's when human emotions take over. And when you have to be much more logical.
Yeah, I
But
always say,
yeah, these are all things that are very important that you won't find in the mainstream. And
yep,
that's why I made in a comment like you belong. There are very few silver commentators out here who do the research that you do and look at it and frame it in a way that makes you think. So I think that that's fantastic, and people owe you a debt of gratitude as far as I'm concerned. What you do is not easy. Putting yourself out there is not easy, and but it's admirable. And I think the stories that you find are spot on. And when you comment on them, that's exactly what you're doing. You're not giving financial advice. You're commenting on a story and on its authenticity. But I think
yeah,
things are just getting going for silver. And I know it's hard for people maybe to hear that because it's been such a drawn out process. But this is something you have to think in terms of big picture. The
yeah,
way that these nations are accumulating silver against the West, using the suppression against them, has to be methodical. It has to be done plotting and drawn out and slowly rather than all at once. So this is one of these deals that will be like this, and then bang, there'll be no more silver left to be delivered at these prices. And maybe that is a problem with the COMEX, or maybe that's just a realization that the coffers are empty. And then things change immediately. And then it goes the other direction, and it will run to the upside as much as has been held down to the downside, because once it's set free from the shackles of the Western suppression, and it's valued for its real utility, I think the upside potential is life changing. Now, I don't sell gold and silver for these reasons. I don't sell them for profit potential, but I do think that silver is the trade of a generation. I do. It's definitely the trade of the decade, and I mean, I buy it because it's money and it's wealth outside the system, but the fundamentals, both supply and demand, um, are incredible. And I think it's something that will only start to show its true value here, maybe in 2024, as things start to become a little bit more real, if you will.
yeah, man. Yeah, that's exactly, man. Like, I swear, there's only a couple of people that I've covered that like truly have put the missing puzzle piece together. Like, everyone always has, like, they'll be spot on certain parts, but people like Keith Neumeyer, yourself, Ted Butler, David Morgan, um, who else? Mike Maloney, I could even say to some extent, Bix Ware. Um, there's a couple other people too. I'm not remembering right. I don't know, but those are people I feel like that truly get it. A lot of people just look at one section or another, and that can be pretty dangerous because when you're looking at such a like the micro, for example, and you miss the bigger picture, that's when you're not incorporating so many different unknown variables. And you'll see forecasts where I saw a forecast yesterday, actually. They said we would be shocked if silver doesn't hit all-time highs within 3 years, tops. And a lot of people were saying like that's impossible. It's like, how is that impossible? three
Well,
years tops
I
to
think
hit all-time
people
highs.
will say that because of the information that the mainstream is providing and the
Yeah,
price
that's
action that we've seen would make people believe that. Remember what I've said a long time ago to you: price is the ultimate tool of misdirection. And if
yeah,
you hold down the price, it creates a reality regardless of the fundamentals. And that's why when you talk about the fundamentals being distorted, oh, you're just saying that you're a conspiracy. That's not true, blah, blah, blah. But it's very easy to see if you go down the silver rabbit hole. Do
yeah,
your research and then make your comments. And
yeah,
you are in a position of authority to say that, and so am I. I've done my research. The people who push back and say that kind of stuff, they haven't, well, they maybe have looked down the rabbit hole, but they haven't certainly jumped in and plugged their nose and here we go. And I think that's the important thing. So the more you start to read this and look or read about it and research it, and the more sense it makes.
yeah. I like that. The silver rabbit hole. I like that. I like that.
But anyways, yeah, in closing, is there anything else you wanted to talk about or mention?
No, that's, well, I think the only other thing is, we talked a little bit, I think, last week about United Arab Emirates telling the world they didn't want to use oil. And I don't know if we or use the dollar for oil, which is a huge shot across the Western bow. But I don't know that if we talked about the fact that a couple days later, Putin made a surprise impromptu
Yeah,
trip to the United Arab Emirates, flanked by 4 Russian MiG fighter jets. The day, right after this United Nations meeting ended with 200 countries coming to talk about climate control, the meeting presided over by the head of the United Arab Emirates state-owned oil company, who told the world the day before, 2 days before all these countries arrive, hey, we're not going to take dollars anymore for oil. Well, then the summit ends. Putin makes an impromptu trip to the UAE, and then goes directly to Saudi Arabia, whereby they then say, oh, we're going to actually increase our reduction in daily output from 1.1 to 2.2 million barrels of oil per day. So is it coincidence, or is this group gaining credibility, gaining legitimacy? I think that, to me, that's something to keep your eye on. This is really beginning to spin faster. And in years past, when a country would say something like that, think Muammar Gaddafi, think of Saddam Hussein. One said, I'm going to take euro for oil. The other said, I'm going to take gold for oil. And they were both toppled and killed. And their regimes changed. Well, it ain't so easy to do that when the United Arab Emirates just joined the BRICS alongside of Saudi Arabia, and in 11 days they become full members. You have strength in numbers. You have strength in backing 2 of the 3 largest nuclear arsenals in the world. And is there any coincidence that after they make this very daring statement, glaring and daring, that Putin decides to fly over with 4 MiGs,
yeah,
flanking him, because he hasn't left the country but once or twice in the last few years because of the bounty on his head. But it was enough to have him fly in person to the UAE. I think it's very, very important in what it says. And
yeah.
that's why I believe 2024 is going to be one crazy, crazy year.